Good evening. All right. Good evening. I'd like to call the March 18th school board meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Public comment will occur during the public comment portion of the meeting and is done by raising your hand remotely or in person. Once acknowledged, please state your name and ward so it can be included in the minutes. Please limit your time to 3 minutes. Public comment is governed by policy BEDH. Next is the additions and deletions by the superintendent. Tonight I'm requesting that we move item 10B to after the election of officers. And I'd also like Tim Ball to present 9B before I go ahead and present 9A, and also to inform the board that we will be entering into non-public at the end of the meeting. Is there anybody in the room that would like to provide public comment? If you are online and would like to provide public comment, please do so by raising your hand. There is no public comment online. The next is the election of officers. We are electing a board chair, vice chair, and secretary. Do I have a nomination for the board chair?
I'd like to nominate Lil.
I'll second.
Sorry. Any other nominations? All in favor? Passes unanimously. Chair Mon, the meeting is yours.
Okay, thank you all. We move on to nominations for the vice chair. Are there any nominations for the vice chair? I would like to make one. I'd like to nominate John Doncherman for the vice chair.
I'll second that.
Oh, so many seconds. All right. All right, are there any additional nominations? Okay, all those in favor? You're not going to vote for yourself?
I will abstain.
Okay. Oh, I see. All right. And now we're moving on to secretary. Are there any nominations for secretary?
I'll nominate Tia Winter for secretary.
Okay. Do I have a second? Take a second. Layla. Okay. Okay. Any additional nominations for secretary? Okay. All those in favor? There is a parent outside who's trying to get in, and I don't know if they're able. Okay. I know that the middle door's not, they're like, one of the doors is locked, so they're confused. They were just knocking on the window over here, so just. Okay, great. Yes, let's have.
Don't forget your nameplates.
Oh, I
All right, that brings us to 10B, which is discussion and acknowledgement of a $2,000 donation from the Legion Riders for school lunch debt.
Or if you'd like to come up to the mic to say, actually Tyler's going to get that mic on for you to say a few words.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Bellamer. I work for the Lebanon Solid Waste Department. I'm a member of the Lebanon Legion. Within that, they have the Legionnaires, the Auxiliary, the Sons of the American Legion, and the Riders, which we are. We earned a bunch of money, and we didn't have anything earmarked. So I had an idea back at the January meeting to donate some money towards the cafeteria fund. So I was able to contact Tim, and finally, after getting a hold of him, then having our meeting, and then getting everything approved and getting a check written, we finally pulled it off, and we're here to present the check for the community to help pay off some of the bills.
Thank you very much. We're really grateful for that. We appreciate you coming to bring it in person, and we appreciate you thinking of us and donating it, and the students will absolutely appreciate that. District will appreciate it as well. So thank you very, very much.
You're very welcome.
Chairman, I know they,
Yeah.
I think they want us to go, do you want to go up there too, Tim?
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll take a picture.
Chairman, and then Tia was, want to go up there?
Yep, sure.
You're on it.
Do you want to give me your camera? Have him take a picture?
Get that and send it to you, or do you want us to use your camera?
Yeah, we can use mine. Let's see if I get my phone to work. I got it upside down every which way. Here we go.
Of course.
You still?
Tim, jump right in the center here.
You can accept it, Tim, you're the money guy.
There's that.
I'm taking them in all sorts of different Zooms. I'm not new to this.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I forgot to mention that, Walt Madel, he's our director.
This is exactly
He
who
had
we are as a
two
board. This is
previous
exactly it.
engagements he wanted to get, so, and he just wanted to say,
I'm happy candy.
you're very welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming.
Soda and sugar.
I needed the sugar, sorry. All right.
Bye, Candy. Love you.
I'll get those emailed.
All right, let's see, that takes us to student report. I do not think we have a student report today, so we will move on. Correspondence.
We got a letter from a parent expressing some concern, expressing an issue with transportation.
Okay. All right, that brings us to the consent agenda.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes from the February 18th school board meeting and the February 18th non-public meeting.
All right, can I get a second? Second by Ash. He's losing his voice, so. All right. All right, any corrections to those minutes? No? Okay, great. All those in favor? So if you weren't here, then you can just abstain because you weren't here for that meeting, so that's fine. And just as a general rule, if you're not here, you can abstain. If you disagree, you can always vote no. And if you concur, then you vote yes. So those are our three options right there. All right. So that's going to be 7, 4, and 2 abstentions. All right. Let's see. Moving on to nominations, renominations.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the nominations, renominations in tonight's packet.
Is it in the packet? Oh, there it is.
Resignations. And the
All right.
retirees.
And the retirees, right. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Do we have any questions? It's this chart right here. Yeah. Do we have any questions about this? Yes.
So we have 3 retirees, 1 resignation on this report.
Any questions? No? Okay. Now then, everybody can vote on this one. All those in favor of accepting the nominations, resignations, and retirements? Okay. You can vote this time. Great. Perfect. Gets easier as we go along. All right. And actually, that brings up something that I should have done in the beginning. I just want to welcome our new board members. We had elections. We have new and returning board members. So we want to welcome Tia, our returning board member, and we want to welcome Travis and Candy, our new board members. So thank you all for coming, and thank you all for serving, and we're excited to have you. All right, that brings us to 9B, the SAU leadership team update by our business administrator.
Good evening. In your packet, you'll see every month, usually starting around November, you'll see an update of expenditures, and hopefully, if I get my act together, you'll see some verbiage, and they're both in your packet tonight. And I'll, for you new members, we'll update those every month, and then probably starting around next month, we'll start doing some revenue offset it too. And you'll learn more about the budget in a kind of crazy, it's way different than your own pocketbook, but you'll learn that as you go along. So the idea is these are the major, what they call functional areas. There's different, these are the functions according to New Hampshire accounting that go into the funding the school, and this sheet is only referring to general fund. There's money we spend on things that are not local tax revenue, grants and stuff. That's not included in here. That's a different conversation. So what I've been doing is tracking, and this year has been a tighter year than most. So the verbiage really tries to, I tried to explain some stuff. Major over expenditure, we're 95.62% expended and encumbered. Encumbered is money that's planned to be spent, but not actually out the door yet. So it's spoken for, basically. That is, it continues to be more than the last couple of years, but one thing we did differently this year that we haven't done in previous years is we made everybody have their purchase orders in by the end of January. Our cutoff date has usually been April break, so we encumbered more earlier. And if you look at the last 2 years, we are more expended than this time last year, 2.85% more than last year and 2.42 more than 2 years ago. But I wrote in parentheses, both of these are improvements over the previous month, and that, I think, is speaking to what we talked about last month, which is we encumbered a lot more, a lot earlier. So you should see, hopefully we'll see those numbers come back in line where expended and encumbered are closer to the previous years. The big, because hopefully everything big is encumbered, there shouldn't be a lot more movement on these lines, except there are special ed costs that are not encumbered, because frankly, there's costs that came about after the budget was set. This budget we're in now was set effectively in November of '24. So I've been talking to Amy, and Ben and I meet, Ben, the special ed director, and I meet at least monthly, and we are planning on and asking for a public hearing in April to withdraw around $900,000 from our special ed cap reserve fund to pay for those tuition costs we have that we have to pay. We're basically holding on in some of the bills because the special ed money we have is already encumbered and spoken for.
Tim, quick question. How much of that 900,000 are we likely to be able to get back next year when they finally reimburse us for stuff?
Good question. I don't know if Ben could do the math, but a good portion of it.
Okay.
Did you hear the question, Ben? Do you have any idea, at least ballpark? I don't know. So the other thing he's referring to is that the state gives us they reimburse you a significant amount of your special ed costs, but it takes a year. And it comes into the general fund. It doesn't go back into that cap reserve fund, unfortunately, but it is at least a net. If you wait a year, the net isn't as bad as the original $900,000.
And we can choose to put money back into the capital reserve fund for special ed.
You have to put it on the warrant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which we do every year anyway.
Yeah.
So that's a good question, and certainly a question that I will chase down. There's a formula, and the formula just changed.
Of course.
I think
Ben's coming
Ben
up.
has it, yeah.
Sorry to make work for you, Ben.
No, yeah, I just, quick math, I think we could get around a little over $500,000 in reimbursement
Okay.
if we're considering that full $900,000 to be tuition costs. Again, there's a little bit of discrepancy there, but we'll get a large majority of that back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So that's good news if you're willing to wait. That's like,
And it's
Interest-free
about
loans.
half of our special education fund, correct?
yeah, so our special education fund right now has $1.7 million in it. If we were able to finish the year with the money that the voters just voted on, we'd put another $250 into it. So net, we'd have like 1.2 afterwards. So because of the wise work of the board and the voters, we have the money. But this is not a good year as far as just having pockets of money around, but we have the protection to be able to make it through it. We just don't want to do it again. This report shows the first, as it did before, in the school board line 2310, it's not a school board expense, but there's no good way to put it. We have a healthcare assessment that we got from our healthcare company called School Care. Assessment means that we are part of a group of schools and towns that basically have a fund for healthcare, and their actuary said they needed more money in that fund, a lot more money, or they weren't going to be able to finish the year. So our assessment piece of it was $1 million. That was unfunded, obviously. It came out of nowhere in November. If you watched the news, you've seen it. We have agreed to make 3 payments. We made the first payment in January. Our next payment is due in March. So and we're taking that from our contingency fund we had. That number in the school board line adjustments of 340 will go up to 680 because it's another 340. Like I said, one time we're okay, but
So that's why the school board is apparently costing $340,000.
You're very expensive.
We are very expensive.
It's
Where else
it's
put that?
it's like a cost to run the district, so that's why I put
Right.
it there. I might be forced by when Mark Manganiello from the state, who runs all the money stuff, he'll tell us in the end where to put it. If he doesn't like that, then I'll do a journal entry. But any questions? This might seem like foggy, but in a few weeks you'll be like, I get it.
Questions for Tim? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us to the superintendent's update.
Good evening, and first, congratulations to Candy and Travis on joining the board, and congratulations on Tia for winning your election. We look forward to working with you and appreciate your willingness to serve the Lebanon community. I asked Tim tonight to begin with the financial update. Tonight, I'm going to follow with an overview of some pending legislation and how I'm proposing we position the district to respond to our current financial status in regards to special ed as we prepare for the new fiscal year. I think I connected with you all before the meeting and gave you some resource material that I received at the Legislative Update Conference in Concord that was sponsored by the New Hampshire School Administrations Association. The first 2 pages in here are just updates on charter school facts and special ed. As you know, we are gaining another charter school in Lebanon. We've been in touch with them and are anxiously waiting to see how many of our students from Lebanon will be attending and how many of those students are identified with IEPs. It gives you some of the facts of the requirements that we need to do. We are required to provide transportation in the same way we provide transportation for our students, so that if there's an existing route, students that are going to the new charter school on Mount Support Road can get on that route. So as those parents register for that school, I will be updating that. So there may be some changing to timing around buses. They also will follow our school calendar, and we do not need to provide transportation if we cancel school, and they do not. So tonight, I just wanted to highlight several key bills that are related to budgeting, just as Tim reviewed our financial status. First one I'm going to talk about is House Bill 1610, and this is related to contingency funds and retention of unassigned balances. This is in your packet. This bill clarifies how districts may establish contingency funds and updates the process of retaining year-end unassigned balances. Specifically, this bill allows district to create an annual contingency fund through a separate warrant article, which we do, to cover anticipated expenses. It also changes the retention of unassigned funds from a one-time approval of 2.5% or 5% of the total budget appropriations to an annual approval up to 3% and limits the use of unusual circumstances. Current practice, for those, our legislative body approves a warrant article permitting the school board to retain, we do 2.5%, according to the RSA, and the school board may retain these funds each year until they are rescinded. This system allows us to set aside funds for unanticipated expenses such as special ed, building needs, and also healthcare costs, and it requires a public hearing prior to the appropriation. As Tim mentioned, we will be looking for a public hearing for our special education funds. So the implications for this bill for the school district, it's going to require an annual approval. So retention of unassigned fund balances will require approval of the legislative body every year rather than continuing indefinitely once approved. So that will be a change. There'll be a limit on use. Funds may only be used for unusual circumstances as defined by RSA 32-11 rather than for broader or budget routine needs. So there is some questions regarding special ed in there. It is not clearly defined. There will be a cap on funds, so retained funds would be limited to 3% of this current year's net assessment compared to the previous allowance up to 5%. The biggest impact, if it's not approved by the voters, all assigned funds would revert back to offsetting taxes. So this bill is headed to crossover and will be heard in the Senate.
So for clarity, this is the mechanism we used in our healthcare assessment. The public hearing I want to have in April is from the cap reserve fund for special ed. We had a public hearing to access these funds in November.
And Tim, remind us, what was that assessment? How much did they ask for us total for the healthcare assessment?
$1,033,000.
Right, so $1,033,000, and we got that bill when? It was in.
Oh, Jesus showed up.
September 27th to October
There you
1st,
go.
I remember.
Right. So in September, after the budget had already passed, already been approved by the voters, in September, we got this bill for over $1 million and we had to pay this bill in order to be able to continue to have health care for our employees, correct? So we were able to pay it because we had this fund balance that we approved years ago, that the voters approved years ago. We've been able to retain the 2.5% every year. And this bill would say that we would no longer be able to retain that 2.5% every year. Every year we'd have to vote to be allowed to do that. So just, I want to make sure I understand what we're doing. So it seems to me that then that is somewhat problematic because it moves us into a position of taking funds that we have kept for specifically purposes like this, like rainy day funds that are big, important funds, right? Like that was $1 million that we had. We've been able to keep that for those kinds of things, and this bill would say, no, you're no longer allowed to do that, and you have to have it approved every single time, which I think would run into problems. Is that what we're?
Correct.
Okay.
All
Thank you.
right, thank you. Next.
One more question, Tim. When we often have a warrant article to take some of the unassigned fund balance over a certain amount and put it into a capital reserve fund.
I'm sorry,
How,
say that-
put it into a capital reserve fund where, if we have $700,000, then anything over that will go to, how is that going to interact with this?
I'm not sure, but it looks like there would be, yeah, so you would still do that, but you would have another warrant article saying you are retained up to whatever the number is for this contingency fund. But the devil's in the details, honestly. So that's, it crossed over to the other side of the house.
And like they said, I know there's needs to be some amendments and language clarification to some of the other bills that we've seen. So any other questions before I move on to the next one?
I
House
have
bill.
one more question about
Sorry.
it. Sorry. I was wondering if there's been any kind of discussion with this kind of obstructing like current practices, or if there's any kind of other input from other boards or superintendents at this point about this bill.
There has been portals open for people to go in to make comments. So, I know certain districts have made comments, individual people have made comments on there. So I don't have the date for when this will be heard again. They haven't said it. So what I do know, these bills are coming fast and furious in Concord. So we are not getting much notice for one of these bills are posted to go to testify.
Okay, thank you, Amy.
Next bill with potential budget impacts is relative to eliminating the default budget as an official ballot referenda. Bill summary: if no operating budget is adopted, the community shall be deemed to have approved the operating budget equal to the previous year's approved operating budget, thereby redefining the default budget under applicable laws. So if our budget does not pass, we go back to the previous year's operating budget.
With no increases for cost of living,
Right.
for anything?
So what could be some of the impacts? The impact of uncontrolled mandated costs. As we've been talking about special ed, it is a federal education law, and those costs are mandated, and we don't have control over those. There is some language here, too, about tuition rates in terms of our area agreements. As Ash just pointed out, the integrity of personnel contractual obligations. We negotiate usually anywhere from 1 year to 3-year contracts. If the budget didn't pass and we could not use the default mechanism, we'd have to figure out how to oblige by those contracts without the additional money. Also, I think this would give us kind of tie our hands in trying to get long-term operational contract costs, like for multiple years, to get a better deal. We wouldn't be able to kind of operate that way anymore. We'd have to be thinking year to year. Again, I don't have a date when this will be heard in the Senate, but this one we are watching closely, as it could have a huge impact on our budget. Any questions or clarifications on this one?
So currently, when we have a default budget, our default budget is our operating budget minus any one-time expenses, correct, that happened that year. And But is the default budget also adjusted for inflation?
It's this year's budget minus one-time expenses, plus any contracted obligations, but there's definitions on that. So districts would have a transportation contract, for example, with an escalator, they can't include the escalator. But the contract it refers to is CBAs, in particular, or healthcare. So, like right now, we take our budget, take off our one-time expenses, but we'll add in already agreed to CBAs, healthcare costs that we know, that goes into default.
So if
like-
we've negotiated a 322,
Okay, so hold on just a second. CBA stands for,
Sorry, collective bargaining agreement, the agreements we have with our unions. have
and
4
when
of
we
them.
do them, we do them 3 years at a time, which means we negotiate for raises
cost of living increases, so.
3%,
3%,
2%, 2% over time.
But if the default budget goes away, then we have to eat that 2%, and then that next year's 2%, whatever, like.
Yeah, this is saying
The
that we
raises
just
are
take
not
this
built
year's
in.
number.
Okay.
So that could be, in a year like this, when we got a 20% healthcare increases in the budget, that could be really challenging, because you can cut out you take this year's number, you can cut out some one-time expenses and maybe make up some numbers for raises, but what are you that's a huge number.
It also feels like you could be sued by your unions.
Yeah, well, we're obligated to give the raise, so I know
Right.
that,
I mean, you would,
right,
yeah,
have to.
you would have to.
Yeah, I would say it would probably change the way we negotiate to more of the one-year contracts or have them tied to a CPI, which is leading into the next proposed bill, House Bill 1288, relative to enabling SAUs to adopt budget caps. So this would allow local communities to put a cap on how much their budgets can grow each year. What is a budget cap? Instead of the board proposing a budget that meets the specific needs of the district and students, this bill creates a mathematical formula to limit that budget. It's calculated by taking the cost per student and multiplying it by the number of students, then adding a small amount for inflation, either a fixed percentage or a cost of living index. So how this bill would be adopted, to start a budget cap, it would require 60% of the voters across this community to vote yes. We would have a public hearing, so citizens can discuss the proposal. And it must be approved by the voters. So this is where there's some clarification that need to happen about SB 2 towns where it doesn't quite fit with what we're doing. What happens if the school board wanted to go over the cap? It would be a supermajority required. So if the budget exceeds the cap, it would require 60% of the majority of the public to pass. In the backup plan, if the voters don't give a 60% approval, the budget automatically drops back down to the capped amount or the previously adjusted budget. So this is going to be a challenge too for enrollments as that come in, with open enrollment possibly coming, and it's going to make us hard for us to control costs, especially those are due to inflation, especially costs similar to our healthcare costs that we have limit to. So again, this one has not been scheduled yet for the Senate. I anticipate that date being set soon.
I just want to point out how absurd it would be for a growing school district to only allowed to grow its budget by the cost of inflation instead of the actual growth of the student body and the number of services it needs to provide.
Right, and we are one of the few districts in the state that is consistently growing. So we are not shrinking. Our district is not shrinking in enrollment. We are increasing in enrollment year over year. So it would be particularly a struggle for our district to continue to maintain the same level of excellence that we have under that kind of conditions.
Amy, we spoke with, it was the superintendent of Manchester?
The board chair.
The board chair of Manchester at a policy meeting, I think it was 2 years ago.
Here, pull the mic closer to you because you're even softer than normal.
I wondered if we could invite him to come speak to the full board about budget caps.
Sure, I can have him reach out for the impact for they're in their budget season right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it may be towards like the end of the spring. I think their automatic board presents their school budget 2 weeks or something. All right, the next one, just I'll briefly cover, is House Bill 1418, which is setting a minimum affirmative vote for new or expanded spending in SB 2 towns. This will require a minimum voter participation of 15% of registered voters for warrant articles on proposing the budget adoption or any other appropriation in town or school districts with the official ballot form. So it's going to do a fundamental shift in how budgets happen. It's going to require 15% of our registered voters for yes to be valid on the budget adoption. So if we don't get the 15%, essentially means the budget is voted down. So again, it's something that we're watching. As soon as these dates get scheduled, it is something that I can share out. And I know I spoke with our re-elected board chair is that, if this board wishes to, is to reinstate the legislative committee as a kind of a full working committee versus a subcommittee, because there's lots of things happening in Concord, and quite honestly, some of them we just find out and they're amending them as they go. So,
Can I just say about this one? I mean, there are many problems with this, but I think the biggest problem of this is that they're saying that anyone that votes, if it's less than 15%, and I think our voting participation, Princess, you probably know more than me, of how many voters we had this, was it like 14%? I think was it 4? This year was 20. In the past, it's been 14 or even 11. Then we're saying that we negate all of those votes, that none of those votes count. And I think that is really...
Right, it kind of takes those people that came out to vote, their voices are not going to be heard because people that...
But if you're in a town meeting, a non-SB2 town where there's regularly under 10%, those are fine. So like at my town meeting, there was less than 200 people there, and so that's less than 10%, but that's not affected by this.
Right, it's affecting the SB2
towns. Yeah, I mean, that seems like a really undemocratic move, in addition to problematic in many other ways, so.
I would strongly recommend that if they pass this, that it might be worth signing on to a lawsuit about it. If
Can I ask what makes something an SB2 town? I'm not familiar with the term.
SB2 is a shorthand. It was proposed, whatever the RSA is, it was proposed as Senate Bill number 2. And it turns, we have adopted that here and most big towns have, that's a ballot. You go to the ballot like you did and you vote. If you're not SB2, you go to a school meeting or a town meeting, you sit in a gym and you debate a budget and you raise your hands. And so if you have adopted SB2, again, as most big towns have, you have a ballot. So in Plainfield, they didn't have a ballot. We had to go sit on Saturday and vote.
Can I say this, and you can correct me if I'm incorrect? So it's not necessarily related to town size, but it is not uncoincidentally targeting larger functioning towns. Great. Thank you.
Next one here, House Bill 1300 is establishing a biannual school district local tax cap question and related limitations on central office administrative expenses. So this bill would allow to do a local tax cap on the portion of the property taxes raised for schools and a fixed cap on the central office administrative budget of supporting school districts tied to inflation using CPI Northeast Region and the percentage increase of the municipality's taxable property value attributable to the new construction. All right, so some of the pieces of there, obviously this would have a threat to our operational stability, the impact of uncontrolled and mandated costs as in special education, our Hartford Career and Technical Center, our integrity of our contract obligations, and most importantly, I think one of the questions that we had is for the SAU. This bill really seemed like it was written for those towns that have multi-SAUs and cooperative districts. In a single district SAU, such as the Lebanon School District, administrative functions are really integrated. So it's hard to say that this is just a central office cost, because payroll, she's responsible for paying teachers and everybody else, right? So under that bill, it's not clarified if that would be able to be parsoned out. Both Ben and Karen work with the schools. Xavier is an HR person, he served with that. So there is some clarity that needs to happen in here, but the bill as written, if passed, would have an implication for us.
So instead of having one person do that, we would have to hire 4, one for each school, because that's a great way of saving taxpayers' money. I love these bills. They're great.
So
Probably-
those,
Probably more likely is that we would have to have a lot more complicated accounting where I'm allocating my payroll person's pay across 5 entities, the 4
divided by
schools
the
and the SAU.
employees and things like that. Finally, I'm just going to give one more update on House Bill 1815. Last Friday, our Senate Finance Committee advanced the bill after hearing testimony for over 1,000 individuals in opposition and 8 in support. This bill seeks to redefine an adequate education and clarifies the state's financial obligation in providing so. And this is in response to the recent court hearing that New Hampshire is not fully funding an adequate education, therefore shifting the burden back to our local taxpayers. As you may recall, had the state met its obligation this year, our proposed budget this year would not have reflected an increase over last year because this board and our administration did such a good job at presenting a budget that met our needs, but which also was financially sound. This bill could potentially lower the state's contribution to adequate education, having this board to decide if we would want to continue with certain programming and moving the burden back to the taxpayer. We're going to continue to monitor these bills closely, along with the 170 other bills that are related to education that are in the legislation committee. Any questions on House Bill 1815?
So just to clarify that, because these are hard to keep track of, this bill is attempting to redefine what the state owes to its public school students, correct?
Correct, and what qualifies, what the state should pay and what qualifies for an adequate education. So there is some people in there putting languages like we don't need music and art to be an adequate education. So they're redefining what those basics are. Doesn't mean that school districts can't continue to operate and provide those things, but we would not be funded for those
So that
things.
would mean that all of the programs that we already have that would be redefined out by this legislation would then be the responsibility of the taxpayers. They would have to make up the difference.
Correct.
And that difference, I assume, is related to what the court said is it approximately $7,000 per student? But we've been receiving approximately
4,900, something like that.
Yeah.
It's like 72, what they defined as an adequate in the lawsuit that was won, and then the legislation doesn't believe it should be up to the courts. It should be up to the legislation.
So this is presumptively, I want to make up my own rule because we're choosing to not pay.
Essentially. It's a good way to put it.
Just to make it
And they want to
clear.
make it lower than the current number,
Right.
as opposed to what the court said, which needs to be significantly higher.
Well, yeah, the court reviewed what is in law now, what adequate education is, and put a number to it. And so they want to change the law to there's less in an adequate education, thereby making their obligation less.
Okay.
And I'd like to just also point out from what I've observed, the kind of through line with, with the exception of 1815, of, 5 of these bills seem to be all kind of trying to say the same thing. I don't know if there's independent people working on it or if they're hoping to throw in 5 passes that really impacts education. Just the kind of swarm of the legislation feels very overwhelming. And I just want to extend my gratitude to you, Amy, for going through this and presenting some of this very need-to-know affects our budget information.
Is there anything we can do about them?
As I said before, my recommendation is to reestablish that legislative committee to meet more often, and, from that group can make recommendations, and then we could vote on as a board if we're going to file testimony. You always can file testimony, any opinion on anything, online for any of these bills, on things like that. What we're finding is that recommendations for people is to email the governor. And recommendation from everyone is like, that's where it's going to stop at some point. But, certainly, I think by having that reestablished committee, that would certainly help. And then for us is just communicating with the community so they understand as we protect our tax dollars, we want to make sure that the people understand that sometimes the laws may be working against us.
I think it's important, too, I do agree with the idea of strengthening our legislative task force and turning it into an actual committee. I think the other issue is these are happening so quickly that it kind of thwarts our process here as a school board. It thwarts the democratic process, right? If they're happening so fast that you don't have time to have a meeting and have a time to vote, I think it's going to be incumbent upon many of us to oppose things as individuals, not representing the school board, represent ourselves as school board members, because I think sometimes we won't be able to meet in time to decide something as a group before legislation is moved on, because it's moving through so quickly, or moving through without a vote or without a hearing.
There's a very
Yeah.
powerful anti-democratic movement in Concord right now.
Yeah.
Last week, they, over 2 days, pushed through 180 bills in 2 days.
And sometimes we're getting 24 hours, like, you're supposed to get a notice of it
Yep.
24 hours, but some of these big bills that I was talking to Lil is like, we're not getting much notice to turn around to be able to go to testify.
And I've spoken with legislators, and they just, there's a swamp by it. And they're just, there's no, they're ending debates, so they can push these through all in like a 2-day period.
Yeah.
And so these things aren't being properly considered, they're not being properly vetted. It's a purely anti-democratic motion, and it makes me very angry.
So I think we'll talk about that at the end of the meeting about the legislative committee, but I think also just to keep, as we're getting this information from Amy, we as individuals should, as taxpayers and as board members, should be, if we're moved to, should be expressing our opposition or support for various bills, because I think it's important to move quickly, even if we can't move as a whole together.
Right. I promise I got good news at the end here. Hold on. As Tim shared, we are currently approximately $900,000 overspent in our special education line. As Tim mentioned, our budget approved for the 26-27 school year that we just passed reflects our current education costs at the time of development. This year, however, we've already experienced several unanticipated placements due to students moving into districts. So that's predominantly some of the reasons why our costs are up. As we are moving now in the education world, we are seeing potential placements on the future that will not obviously included in next year's budget. Next month, we're going to be asking our board to approve those funds for the Special Education Trust. And these really are essential in protecting both the districts and the taxpayers for unforeseen costs that arise in the budget that's been set. In response to our current financial position, and I met with Tim and the leadership team, I'm going to be meeting tomorrow with our building leaders to discuss on holding any non-essential staff hirings for the remainder of the year. In addition to the purchase order freeze already in place, we'll continue to work closely with our school leaders to ensure that all expenditures are necessary and aligned with student needs. I think putting these steps in place are intended to put the district in the strongest possible financial position going forward, and allowing us, if possible, to return funds to our taxpayers and contribute to our reserve accounts in alignment with what our voters has asked for. I just want to be clear to this board that student program will not be impacted by this. As we look ahead for the fiscal year in July, we are also reviewing our anticipated retirements and the retirements that you just passed. We're going to start realigning our staffing and to meet the student needs and efficiently as possible. We'll continue to seek thoughtful other efficiency across the systems. We're going to be looking at our projects, RFPs for services, everything that we can do to put in place to strengthen our financial system. Given the uncertainty of the surrounding pending legislation that I just said and the potential impact of open enrollment, even though our community voted no to send, I think it's important that we take some proactive steps now to strengthen our financial outlook without compromising any of the quality of our educational programs. Any questions on that before I get to the good news I promised you? Ready?
I have one, Amy. Can you give us some examples of things that might or will be impacted? You said that students won't be impacted, but what are some things that will be?
I know they're not huge dollars, but looking at, like Tim and I talked about, food at professional development, can we use our existing cafe services that would reduce that? If there are classroom pairs that regular ed that we can move from a different building to fill a position, we will do that instead of hiring. We will hire any special ed pairs to complete with our services, but we're going to be looking at any and all items going forward. and someone who has approved our manifest before, you probably have some ideas too, so we're open to that. I think it's really important, and that we just make sure, especially as where legislation that seems to be pushing against us, that we make sure we go into the next fiscal year as strongest as possible. All right, to the good news. Yesterday, I was informed that the Lebanon School Board has been named the 2026 School Board of the Year. Yes, the school board will be You guys shouldn't be so excited. I mean, so you should be more excited. You should be so surprised.
We're in shock. We're just in shock.
All right, the school board will be recognized at the New Hampshire Eddies. I call it the Oscars for Educational Awards. It's a black tie event in June. So I want to congratulate you on this well-deserved honor. There was a lot of school boards in the running, I'm told, and it is a reflection of your strong policy work, your commitment to students, and the leadership at both the local and state levels. So I will share additional details about the event as they become possible. I will get a press release, so congratulations to... Yeah, I promised I'd get to the news. It wasn't supposed to be shocking news.
I have one question. Does Lil have to give a speech now?
Well, yes, people will have to have a speech, yes, so...
Thank all the little people.
So, and I will note to say, our district PTO group, their letter of recommendation was pretty amazing. So I will share it with you guys. I know this is a big job. It's a volunteer job. It's a tireless job. And we did a lot of great hard work in the last couple of years. So I want to thank you, and you guys should be proud of yourself. That concludes my very long update tonight.
All right. Excellent. Okay, we'll move on to 10A, which is acknowledgment of a $2,500 donation from Adimab for the HSS new playground equipment.
Yes, as you know, the HSS PTO is fundraising for new playground equipment. I believe one of our board members was, Ash was great help in getting this donation. So this will go into their account and raising money towards, they need to raise $50,000 to get the Dorothy Byrne match of $50,000. So I think this is the first big donation that came in, so we're on our way for that. So thank you, Ash, and thank you, Adimab.
I just want to thank former board member Kevin Schutz, who created the connections necessary for this donation to happen. So
We'd like to thank him and thank Adimab for their continued support of the district. So, and thank you for your help in that. We appreciate that. All right, next is discussion and action, acceptance of donated desks from Adimab worth $18,323.
Yes, so Adimab, yes, they contacted us, and they have some great desks that will be used for students and faculty. And Tim and John went out to do the value, and the value is at $18,323, which we're pretty excited about. So we'll need a vote to accept the desk, and we will get them to the schools and out and about.
I'll make a motion that we accept the donated desks from Adimab and thank them.
I will second that motion.
Okay, yeah, I'd just add my thanks to that. That's excellent. Anytime that we can have donations of this sort, that helps us on our bottom line as well. So we appreciate that, and the taxpayers appreciate that. All those in favor? Okay, unanimous. Excellent. Okay, before we move on, I did want to make another happy announcement. I just wanted to announce to everyone that Amy Allen, Superintendent Amy Allen, has consented to renew her contract with us. So we are grateful that she will be continuing on for another contract, and we're really excited about that. We cannot do any of the work that we do without her, so I'm pretty sure she earned that 26th year of School Board Year of the Year award all by herself. So we're grateful for her, and we are grateful that she accepted our offer to continue with the Lebanon School District, and we think that under her leadership, things will continue to improve. So thank you. All right, public comment. Is there any public comment in the room? Will we open for public comment? Okay, is there any online?
If you are online and wish to speak, please do so by raising your hand.
Okay.
There's no public comment online.
Okay, so just as a note for board members, you'll be getting an email soon with this information, but just so you know, we have committee assignments that we need to start making. And so I'll send you an email that has a review of what those committees are and how often they meet, just so that you can have an idea of that. And what you need to do is to say to me, what your schedules are like I can't ever have morning meetings, or I have to have meetings after 5 p.m. or whatever it is. That's helpful to know. Tell me what your preferences are for committees that you'd like to be on. Pick 4 or 5 of them. You're not going to get all of them, but just tell me your, in order of importance, the committees that you would like, because then I can try and assign everyone. I try to do it as equitably as possible. I try to give everybody their first choice if I can, and then after that, it's up to how we move things around. You'll also be assigned a school that you will work with during the budgeting season. So you need to let me know if you have any children in a school, and especially if your kids have moved to a different school, just let me know about that, because we don't want to assign board members to a school where their kids attend. It's just too many conflicts of interest, so we try not to do that if at all possible. Sometimes it's not possible, but we try. And so you'll get some emails from me with some dates for those things, and then try and do this in the next couple weeks so that it's all figured before we have to have another meeting of those committees. Also, just so you know, Finance and Facilities is the next meeting is to be determined. Policy Committee, right now, the next meeting is scheduled for March 31st at 6 p.m. at the SAU. Education Committee met on March 5th. Do you have anything to share about that?
We got an update on student progress that Karen will be presenting to the board
Okay.
at a later date.
Perfect. All right, the next meeting is April 9th at 12 p.m. Now, these meetings, again, if you're assigned to this committee and those times don't work for you, the committee will work together to redecide their time. So these are just the times for right now. Personnel and negotiations, the next meeting is to be determined. We will be doing negotiations this year.
We'll talk about that in non-public.
Okay, perfect. Student Wellness Advisory Committee, the next meeting is on April 9th at 1:30. HACTC met on March 18th. It's just today. How did that go?
Lunch was delicious.
Okay, good. Okay, that one gets lunch.
The students have a culinary program there, and they prepare the lunches for the advisory board meeting. So it's a highlight.
Excellent. Okay, Area Committee met on March 9th. We talked about it was right before the elections, and so we talked about the open enrollment articles that were happening at at Plainfield and Grantham's town meeting and at our upcoming elections. We talked about other concerns that were happening in Plainfield with Cornish's town meeting. We talked about facilities, talked about a bunch of things. School District City Task Force, our next meeting is on March 26th at City Hall. The Housing Task Force, next meeting is on April 20th at 8:15 a.m. And we are going to go into non-public, so I need a motion.
I'll make a motion that we go into non-public under RSA 91A:3, 2A and D.
Okay, and when we do non-public, we have to do a roll call vote, so I'm going to ask each of you individually, and you have to say yes or no. You have to consent to go into non-public. In order to turn on your microphone, you just have to press it. Red means on. So, Carrie?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
I'll second.
Yes, Joe seconded. Thank you. Carrie?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Ash?
Yes.
Tia?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Candy? Layla?
Yes.
Travis?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we will go into non-public. Just for the viewing public, when we come back, we are going to close the meeting. So that is the only thing that will be happening when we return, is that we're going to close the meeting. So we'll be back in a few minutes.
want to.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, we are returning back to the meeting at 7:41. Future agenda items? No? Great. The next school board meeting is April 8th, 2026, here at 6:30 p.m. I will be sending you those emails about committee things. You'll probably get it tomorrow. Start checking your school board email regularly. That's the way that we're going to communicate. And I need a motion to adjourn.
Wait, one more thing before we
Oh,
do.
sorry.
Is there any chance of turning the legislative
Yes.
thing into an actual committee?
Right. So I think I'm going to look into this policy-wise. I think we have to vote to do that.
Okay.
I think we can do it. It's just we just have to. Yeah.
We have to add it to the policy.
Right.
Right? You know, we did the charters for each of those
Yeah.
and stuff. I think we just have to look at that
So we
piece.
have to just there's some policy things we have to adjust, and then we have to vote.
Okay, so
But-
if there's an appetite for that, then at policy,
Yes.
we can put
We should
together.
add that to our agenda on the
Yes.
26th.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Can I have one thing quickly too? You probably already know this, but the new board members, it's a volunteer position, but you get a little bit of money, $1,000 a year. So I need you to come over to the SAU office and fill out the employment paperwork so we can get you paid next time you do it. And we need, you got to do all the regular stuff like
Like
show
an
your
I-9
passport, et
stuff, right?
cetera.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
W4 I-9 stuff. Hold on to committees. I lied that we were going to have business. Now I have to send this to Kamala. Okay. Anything else? Nope. Okay. So motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay. Hash. All right. And second.
Oh, second.
Oh, second, Joe. Okay. And this is just a regular adjourn. All those in favor? Great. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Meeting is adjourned.